What's going on, guys? It's Cimoooooooo. Now today I wanted to bring to you my meta-analysis for the beginning of February 2017. And the reason I say beginning is because in a few weeks from now we're going to be getting Raging Tempest, Zodiacs are going to be released, and most of this meta-analysis is going to be rather irrelevant. But if you do happen to have a regionals or another large-scale event coming up that you are attending before Raging Tempest becomes legal, then this is definitely going to be applicable to you. Now, the biggest thing from January 2017 to now is that DDDs made their impact on the meta, but how much exactly did they affect all of the tournaments that happened throughout January? Well, let's go ahead and take a look at the chart. So as you see, Metal Foes were still the majority dominating deck of the entire format for the meta, taking up about a third of top spots, as well as winning, a fair amount of tournaments across the entire length of January. But as you can see, DDD alongside ABC were not too far behind, as DDD did end up winning ARG Hartford with Jeff Jones. Blair Hunter took first place at an ARG States in the southern part of the US, and DDDs have also been topping in Europe as well, also winning some regionals over there. So DDD has definitely made its impact on the meta. Now, this is kind of interesting because I feel like if it wasn't for the fact that Zodiacs were right around the corner, I feel like DDD might have had a much higher spot and would be taking up much more majority of the pie chart, because I feel like people don't want to invest in a deck that they might only be playing for a couple weeks because Zodiac is right around the corner, and so it's kind of deterring people away from the deck and deterring the deck from being more well represented in the meta. But that doesn't mean that you're not still going to be seeing it, and it's definitely a deck that you're still going to have to contend with, especially if you're going into YCS Seattle as well. Even though it's going to be running, Zodiacs are going to be running rampant, DDD is still going to make a fairly good impact on the meta there as well. And ABC is still doing its thing. ABC is still an incredibly strong deck. Dragon Buster is still an incredibly powerful boss monster, and it can just take you really far. The deck's very linear, but it's incredibly strong, and you really can't fret it for that. Now, moving on to the rest of the pie chart, Paleozoics is still hanging in there, kind of in the top, like, tierish 1.5 spot, if you want to call it that, because being able to just spam out and shit out a bunch of totally awesomes and having a bunch of reactive cards is still a very effective strategy, but it's kind of moved down the list a little bit now that DDD has been introduced into our meta. And then on top of that, I wanted to throw in a bunch of other decks that weren't exactly, very extremely highly represented, but they're still going to be decks that you're going to be seeing probably for the most part, at least until Zodiacs get released a little bit later this month. And those decks, there were some water decks that got first place at some events. There was also totally awesome heroes that did as well. Cosmo actually made a very interesting resurgence in Europe specifically. I believe it got first place at 2 different regionals. So I wanted to highlight that because, especially going against Zodiacs as well, because Cosmo's ships are untargetable, most of Zodiac's cards are targeting related effects, so that kind of gives Cosmo a very interesting place against Zodiacs. Now, Dark Destroyer is at 1, whereas in the OCG it kind of was at 3, but the fact that it took first place at 2 regionals is very notable, and with its synergy with the Artifact engine, because Cosmo Artifact has kind of been a thing for a little while now, Scythe being able to deter Zodiacs moving into Raging Tempest format is very notable, and so that's why I wanted to put it on the chart. And on top of that as well, Blue Eyes actually got some top spots as well. It got second at ARG Hartford, and it also, I believe, won a regional or 2 as well. So, Blue Eyes having a very good Metal Foes matchup because it pretty much just shuts down the summoning mechanic entirely. So Blue Eyes had its spotlight for the most part because since Metal Foes is still so prevalent, Blue Eyes has a fairly good matchup against it, and that's why you're seeing Blue Eyes have some competitive success. And then last but not least, Yang Zing Metal Foe is also emerging as a very interesting deck at the moment because of the synergy with Metal Foes being able to pop the Yang Zings and do insane crazy plays with Danglong and Jiaotu and all these different things, that it actually took first place in a couple different events as well. So if you're going to be going to a regional or any other large scale event, this is your diagram for what you can expect. For the most part, you're probably going to be seeing a lot of Metal Foes, a lot of ABC, a lot of DDD, and a lot of Paleo, but then there's also the chance you might see Water, Blue Eyes, Hero, Cosmo, as well as Yang Zing Metal Foe. But again, I do want to highlight that, you know, this is just kind of an overall meta analysis. Your local meta might be a lot different just depending on the types of players that are there, so take it with a grain of salt depending on if you want to extrapolate this to a local meta compared to a much more competitive event like a regional, a YCS, an ARG states, anything like that must be much wider, much more highly competitive than, say, a locals. But that's going to do it for my meta analysis for this month, you guys. At least until Raging Tempest comes out, I'll be doing a much more in-depth analysis once YCS Seattle has taken place and Zodiacs have had the opportunity to make their mark on the meta. But thank you guys so much for liking the video. If you did, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel for more amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content, and also be sure to back me on Patreon, because by pledging $1 a month, you're investing in my ability to continue bringing you amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content. So thanks so much again. We'll see you next time.